What's ho 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 happening, Capmans? It's me, truly the dumbest, and today is one of the greatest days of the year. Today's Christmas, and I'm sure most of you people are spending Christmas with your families like normal people, but of course I am here making a video and uploading it for you all. That's a lie. I'm actually recording this the day before Christmas, on Christmas Eve, just like a couple of my other videos. I'm sure you'll be able to find out which ones. By the way, they're just generally laid out. But nonetheless, today's Christmas for you guys. If you're watching this on the day, sometime maybe you're not, maybe you are. I don't care. What I do care about is getting straight to the video because this is gonna be a big one. Today is day 2 of Christmas week, and today is of course my character rankings, my true, actual rankings of each character. But I feel like I feel like spicing it up a bit. So instead of just doing my rankings, I want to give my rankings and then 2 to 3 changes I think that each character should get. These are just small changes, nothing too big, like a rework for Freddy, or a rework for Nurse, or a rework for Pig, or a rework for... I can't think of any other killers that would be hated. Oh, rework for Hag. But yeah, so just a couple, or 2 or 3 changes for most killers. Some killers I just genuinely couldn't think of more than 1 or 2. Some killers I couldn't think of any. So yeah, this will be obviously divided into tiers, D through A, as you know, usually as it is. So without any further stalling, I'm just going to jump straight into this, and I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I hope you guys enjoy Christmas week just as much as I enjoyed making them all on the same day. So let's go. Alright, now as all tier lists, we're going to start with the D tier. And from the D tier, we're going to go into 30th, which I think would be Trapper. I'm sure most people would agree. Trapper is probably still the weakest killer in the game. He's most certainly a lot stronger than he used to be. He had, the add-on rework. He had a couple of buffs, just base kit. And, this current meta kind of plays in his favor a bit. It allows him to push things at his own pace, or it allows him to play games at his own pace with the whole gen kick meta, So I don't think he's honestly as bad as he used to be. I don't really think any killer in the game is just downright awful anymore. Nonetheless, he's in 30th place still. And a couple of changes I would make. If you saw my What to Do with the Trapper video, you would already know. But first, all traps start active. So of course, every trial, or at the start of every trial, traps will activate when spawned. Increase his trap placement speed by about 30%, which is Pig House Glove speed. And then there can be no more than 2 traps per tile, just to counter the whole basement trapper thing that everyone hates. So moving on to 29th place, we have the Pig. I think the Pig is awful. I will always think the Pig is awful. And if it weren't for the fact that Trapper is objectively worse, I'd put Pig in 30th place. I think everything about her kit is awful. I think her traps are damn near useless without add-ons. I think her add-ons are fine, and I think her ambush is useless unless, of course, you have add-ons. She's heavily reliant on add-ons. So a couple of changes I think would be good for her. Revert her tear radius back to 24 meters. I don't know why they changed that in the first place. I do know, but the reasoning was stupid. I think that more killers should have more dynamic tear radiuses, so 24 meters for the Pig. As well as that, I think the Pig's roar should happen after successfully damaging a survivor with the ambush. So instead of it charging and roaring, it gives it like you hit the survivor and then she roars as like a battle cry or something like that, or a reverse battle, an end battle, a success cry. I don't really know what to call that. But yeah, so that, and then I think it would be good to have Pig have 1 extra trap by base kit. Maybe that's a really controversial thing. Maybe that'll be too oppressive or whatever. But I think 5 traps by default would be much, much better for the Pig. It allows her to spread more pressure throughout the match. It allows you to kind of, I guess, throw it out a bit more willy-nilly without it ruining her whole game. I just think it'd be very helpful for her. I think it'd help give her a lot of pressure. And yeah, so that's it for Pig, 29th place. At 28th place, we have the Clown. Clown, really bad, of course. I don't think he's as bad as people say he is. I think he's actually a bit better than some people might say he is. That being said, though, he's still really bad, and he lacks a lot of things. My first change is I think Yellow Bottle should be removed, and I think Haste should apply to the Clown through his Purple Bottles. And of course, survivors wouldn't get Haste. But yeah, I think Purple Bottles apply Haste to the Clown instead, just so you still have that speed boost, but you don't have the complication and the needlessness of having 2 different types of bottles. I also think that they should minimize the distortion effect when survivors are intoxicated, because that's just annoying for everyone. And I think instead they should make it so intoxicated survivors cannot see the clown's red stain. I think this would help him a lot in chase. It would help shut him down a lot more, and also just make it a bit more visually appealing to play against the clown. Yeah. And third, I think haste should increase braking speeds. At the very least, if they don't remove haste bottles, it should increase braking speeds because he really needs it. Maybe vaulting speeds as well, but I think most importantly, braking speeds he definitely would need. So yeah, that's it with D tier. Just a few killers. Like I said, I don't think any killer is really horrible at the moment. But yeah, so moving on to the C tier. And in the C tier, topping it off, or I guess not topping it off, sitting at the bottom, number 27th is the Onryo. The Onryo, she has really good map pressure, and that's it. Her condemnation's bad, her chase is bad, and even then her map pressure can be very heavily shut down. And I think that's a really bad thing. I don't think any killer should have their power taken away from them, kind of like the ghost face, but we'll get to that later. So, a few changes. TV post-production... No, not post-production. I meant TV post-teleportation cooldown should be reduced by half, so 50 seconds instead of 100. Whoever thought that it should be 100 seconds, you're an evil being who does not want anybody to be good. So yeah, 50 seconds instead of 100 when popping out of a TV. I also think survivors should gain condemnation while looking at a demanifested Onryo, as well as when within a radius of an active TV. I think condemnation is spread enough, unless of course you have add-ons, which is a trait you'll probably see a lot throughout the bottom of this list. But yeah, I don't think it spreads enough. I don't think it's like just casually there enough for people to worry, unless you're One Pump Willie. So I think this should just be given out actively or more actively throughout the match. And I think manifesting and demanifesting should not slow down the Onryo while in chase. I think it's kind of a dumb thing. You know, she doesn't get the speed boost. She doesn't really get a whole lot already. I don't think slowing her down at all is really necessary. If anything, I think it'd be better if she gets sped up a bit while she's demanifesting or manifesting. Nonetheless, I think at the bare minimum, they shouldn't slow her. So moving on to 26, I have the Hillbilly. Now, obviously, remove his chainsaw overheat mechanic. Completely useless, doesn't do anything for him, and honestly, it's just a needless change. There's a couple of needless features in this, in this game for killers, or hindrances, useless hindrances. I'll get to another one that I think very strongly about later, but Hillbilly is obviously for now. Also, I think his cooldown from bumping into objects should be reduced to 1.5 seconds. I think at the moment it's 3 seconds, which is just so aggressive and so bad for a killer who's not that good in the first place. So I think reducing his cooldown while bumping into objects is very nice. And honestly, besides add-on rework, which I tried to stay away from for the most part from this list, I don't really think he needs much else. I just think remove, like base kit wise, I just think they need to remove his chainsaw overheat and then lower his cooldown when bumping into objects. So, yeah. Moving on to 25th place, I have the Shape, which is also another character I think gets too much hate, but nonetheless. Stocking limit for survivors is removed. I think that's absolutely ridiculous and doesn't make sense with him canonically. How could you limit the amount of, or how can you limit evil? Basically, is what Stocky Boy would say. So, remove stocking limit for survivors. I think stalking from a distance should gain stock faster than stalking up close. Because, throughout the course of the movies, Michael's kind of more of a long-range stalker or a very passive stalker until it's time to strike. I think it makes more sense for him to gain more the further he is away. And finally, Tier 1 lunge, I think should be, or the time frame for the Tier 1 lunge, I think should be increased from 0.2 seconds to 0.3. Not a super big change. I think just a nice quality of life thing. I do have an idea to rework the Shape though. So, I'll get into that whenever I do my what to do with video on Michael Myers. But at the moment, just for small changes, I think that would be very helpful in the long run. Now moving on to the 24th place. Trickster. Very weak. I think very weak, mainly due to his constant, or how fast, or how much he needs to reload his knives compared to the amount of downs he gets, or the amount of use he gets out of them. I also think his main event holds him back a lot. But he could be a very nice and oppressive chase killer if they balanced him well. So for first change, I think main event can be held. I think it's kind of dumb that main event like dissipates once you unlock the ability to use it, because 90% of the time you won't be able to use it, because once you get it, you're either down, you've already downed a survivor, or that survivor's alone, and you're kind of just getting little to no value out of it. So I think it'd be nice if you could hold main event for like a perfect time. Yeah. And for second change, I think main event should not be activated when looking at hook survivors or when the proximity of hook survivors, because if you can hold it, they can hold it until someone goes for the unhook and then down them, theoretically, before they go for the unhook, or they're able to get the unhook. So I think it'd be nice to disable it while, someone's trying to unhook. And then finally, I think they should further turn down his screen rotation. Throw rate rotation, as they list it. Basically just like the kind of kickback you get when you throw knives, specifically on console, because as a console player, it is horribly unbearable to deal with. It's almost impossible unless you're tapping or you have Shadowborn, which is ridiculous. So yeah, I think they should nerf that, or I guess buff that for killer, or for console for quite a bit. So moving on to 23, I have the Doctor. I think the Doctor is honestly a pretty decent killer all around. He's got a very versatile kit. He has information. He has mediocre chase. He's got a good presence. He's got a lot going for him. I think mainly though, the problem with him is his shock therapy. So I think they should reduce his shock therapy delay by 0.5 seconds, which I believe is half, maybe 1/4. No. I think it's half. Right now, I think his shock delay is at 1 second, which I think is way too long. So I think reducing it by half would be a lot more helpful. And I don't know if it's just me. Maybe this is for sure brought up by my experiences. I feel like you shock therapy, and then you're just like, it's literally just a second too slow. I think it'd be so much better for the killer, and a lot easier if it was just shortened by a bit, or even if they just made it like an add-on. I think it'd be very helpful. Second, I think that the range of shock therapy should be increased by about 2 meters. I think that's the range of the Brown add-on. I think shock therapy is super short. I think it can be detrimental sometimes, or not detrimental. It's not really ever detrimental, but I think it can be really annoying to deal with the range sometimes, because you're just so close to getting it, and you don't really know if it's shock therapy, or if it's shock therapy delay, or if it's range. I just think, maybe it's just me, but I think it'd be a lot more helpful and a lot more useful for especially lower tier killers, or lower rank killers, if it was just extended by a bit, base kit. And finally, I think shock therapy should hinder the survivors by just a tad bit. I feel like there's so many loops in the game, and so many times where you shock therapy to stop someone from dropping a pallet, but because of your slowdown while using shock therapy, like, you can't catch up. I've had Ring Around the Rosie so many times with Doctor, with or against and playing as him. I think it'd be so much nicer if it slowed them down a bit, so you just get that, at least the ability to catch up, the chance to catch up. So, yeah, that's it for Doctor. And now topping off C tier, we have the Nightmare. First, or I guess, okay. Nightmare, honestly, I think is much better than he was now. Or much better now than he was about a couple months ago when they shadow buffed him. I made a video about it, I think about a month back. Now that he can place his dream snares through walls, I think that is an absolutely fantastic change. And honestly, I don't think he really needs a whole lot now that he has that change. I think a couple of the biggest things is activated generators, I think, should be available to teleport to. I think it's kind of unfair that the more I guess it kind of makes sense canonically wise. The more the survivors go through the trial, the more you limit Freddy, because that's how it works in the movies. But I think gameplay wise, it's really unfair to him, because by the end game, you're basically just clowned, right? You don't have teleport. You don't have teleport, and I think that really sucks. And I think it'd be much nicer if you can teleport to block generators as a whole. Second, I think Dream Pallets and Snares should be switchable between matches, or in the match. I think that you should just have both at all times. I know many people say this, and I think that's because it'd be so much better than it is at the moment. It's kind of basic, but super helpful, and I think would be very nice. And also, I think survivors should start the trial asleep. I know the paintbrush already does this. But I think it'd be so nice if that was just base kit. I think it would help him significantly in his early game. I think it would help him significantly throughout the game. I just think that overall it'd be a fantastic change, and I think that it should happen. And maybe a small buff, or I guess not, or retooling towards paintbrush if this was a thing. But yeah, so now that we're done with C tier, let's move on to the D tier. In 21st place, I have the Wraith. And I think the Wraith is honestly really good right now. Scott Junn said it best when he said the Wraith is better than he's ever been because of the meta, the gen kick meta. It very much plays into his strengths, and I absolutely agree. So, I mean, that being said, though, I still think he has his, his weak sides, his downsides. So, a few changes. I think uncloaking around corners should increase his uncloaking speed by 15-ish%, maybe 20. This is a suggestion that I stole straight from Darva. I'm sure, as you know so far, I like stealing ideas from people or referencing them for my changes. I think this would be a really nice change, though. I think this would make him a lot more of a stealth killer. I also think another nice change is hiding behind corners can muffle sound, or like between walls, the sound be muffled a bit to help with the stealth aspect of it. That might be a bit harder to code and might be a bit too much. But, I mean, nonetheless, I think that at the bare minimum, cloaking around corners should increase his uncloaking speed. Also, I think all generator actions should be increased by like 5 or 10% when cloaked. I know there's an add-on for it, but I think base kit would be nice as well just to help a bit more with just general actions while cloaked. And I couldn't really think of a strong third one, so I just decided I think they should rework every single one of his perks. I think they're all bad. I think they're all miserable. I can't think of a single perk I use besides Shadowborn, and I only use Shadowborn for niche reasons, not even good reasons. So, I know I said I was going to I tried to stray away from whole add-on reworks and stuff, but I do have it in a couple of these things, and this is technically different. So, I mean, nonetheless, I think this should happen. Anyway, moving on to the 20th place, I think it's the Ghostface. Ghostface is honestly a very good killer right now. I think he's played a lot, and I think he has a lot of stealth capabilities, but I also think he has a lot of problems with him. Mainly his reveal mechanic. I think his reveal mechanic is way too wonky. I feel like they made it worse after his update, which kind of sucks because they did good changes to his add-on reworks. But, going on to my changes, I don't think hooked or down survivors should be able to reveal the Ghostface whatsoever. I think that is an awful thing. I think that's stupid. I think that's dumb. I think that's bad. I think it's awful. It's so stupid. You have to... the amount of times I've seen gameplay where, like, top-tier killers are, like, whining because they have to turn around a corner to activate his Night Shroud is so funny to me, and it makes complete sense. Because, of course, my original killer main was Ghostface. And the fact that I could be revealed by downed and hooked survivors is ridiculous. I think that's a dumb thing. A dumb thing. One of Dead by Daylight's weirdest killer restrictions. And of course you need to change his add-ons. I had a couple ideas for that, but I'll get to that in my what to do with series. Moving on to the next change. I think his power recharge should be decreased by 4 to 8 seconds. So either 20 or 16 seconds. Ghostface's power recharge is wonk. Alright, Ghostface is so weird with how you can lose his power. I think it just help his, not just his power as a whole, but his consistency and his momentum in matches if his power recharged quicker. Also, I just think his general tear radius should be decreased by 24 meters. I think there's a lot of... I really actually don't think of how it would help a whole lot considering the way you're supposed to play Ghostface. And I want to give a little bonus one for him because I've always thought of this, but I don't know how they would work it. I think it'd be nice if in Night Shroud, Ghostface is made a bit translucent. So he's kind of like, I guess, in between phase Onryo is what I think of. So it's like, he's poking around the corner, but you can barely see him. He's kind of like half visible and half not. I think that would help tremendously with actually sneaking up on people, because I feel like there's so many times where survivors just see you with ease. Maybe it's because of the bright cosmetics you're wearing, or it's just because Ghostface isn't sneaky whatsoever. I think it would help so much if he was he's just somewhat translucent. But that's more of a bonus one because I think it's a bit out there, more and these are a lot more smaller changes. So yeah. Now moving on to the Death Slinger, which You should look out for more Deathslinger content later this Christmas week. I got a lot to say on this. I think that his ADS speed should be reduced to 0.2 seconds. I kind of understand what they're doing with his ADS speed, but I think it's still kind of dumb in general. So I think it should be decreased by a little bit. Like I said, I get its reasoning. I think it's way too slow though. So yeah, that. I also think they should reverse tear radius to 24 meters. Everyone else has a reverted tear radius, Huntress and Trickster. Why does Deathslinger? He has a limited range, unlike the other two, and he also, he's loud and tall. Huntress is tall, sure, but she's quiet and tall. And then Trickster is ridiculous. But yeah, I think that he should have a reverted tear radius, or a smaller tear radius. I don't know why they removed it in the first place. The more you think about it, the more my passing joke from the Bone Chill review of them pitying Deathslinger's nerfs, it just seems more and more obvious every day that it's true. Anyway, and for the final change, I think they should increase his Redeemer range by about 6 to 8 meters. At the moment, it's 18 meters, I believe. 18 meters. I think it should be buffed to either 24 or 26. Which sounds a bit ridiculous, but remember, Huntress is infinite range, and she injures you just completely. Where it's Deathslinger, you just get speared. At the bare minimum, you can get injured, I guess. But he has to reel you and stuff. His is a lot more complicated, but I think it's completely fair to have an extended range. And if they mixed it in with his reverted tear radius, I think it could make him a lot more menacing, because you don't really know if he's there or not. You can't really hear. It's like if he had a 26 meter tear radius, he'll be just outside the range where he could shoot you without you even knowing, besides little notification ding. I think that'd be a fantastic thing for Slinger. I think it'd help him so much in his game as a whole. Now before I get onto a long rant and basically turn this into what to do with the Deathslinger video, wink wink nudge nudge, I want to move on to 18th place, which I think is the Cannibal. I think Bubba, or the Cannibal, is a very good killer, honestly. I think he's kind of underrated. I think he's also overhated. I don't blame survivors, though. I have gone up against my fair share of face camping Bubbas, and they are the worst. But honestly, when a Bubba plays normally, it's a lot of fun. It's very stressful, it's very intense, and it feels exactly like what I imagine living in a Texas Chainsaw movie would be like. And I think that they should play into that more. So my changes. Tantrum, I think, should not be increased per charges. So it's just a baseline 5 seconds instead of a chance of it being 8 seconds. That's ridiculous. That's stupid. And once again, whoever thought about that, you're dumb, and I hate you. For a second change, I think the chainsaw should be disabled when within a 12 meter range of a hook survivor for a certain amount of time. I think this is obvious why. Maybe extend the range by a bit, but of course I think it should disable over a period of 5 or so seconds, not just disable instantly, because then he'd be kind of useless in chase near hook survivors. But yeah, nonetheless, I think it should be disabled in some kind of way and within some kind of range. And I also think I really couldn't think of actually a final change, so why not decrease his noise range by 15 meters? Maybe add a little bit more stealth for people who are outside his range. I don't know, from 60 to 45, not really that big of a change. But try to fill up 3 changes per character nonetheless. So, moving on to 17th place, we have the Legion. Now, for the Legion, sorry, I thought I only had 2 for him. I do have 3. Sorry, I'm taking a drink of water. Now for the Legion, I think the requirements to instantly down a survivor using Feral Frenzy should be modified based on the amount of survivors in the trial. So if there's 3 survivors, it'll take 4 hits instead of the 5. And if there's 2, it'd take 3 hits, and then it wouldn't change beyond that. So you can still get an insta-down up until there being 2 or 1 survivor remaining. I think that'd be a bit more fun for the Legion. Not necessarily survivors, but we already know how survivors feel about Legion, so, it doesn't really make a difference. I also think, while no survivors are picked up with Killer Instinct, Feral Frenzy should deplete about 5 to 15% slower. I think it's really unfair for big maps where survivors can just hide in corners that Legion just goes by so quickly. But what makes Legion so good, nonetheless, or even without this stuff, is, he manages to spread pressure so well, right? He is so good at spreading pressure. he can go boom, 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 and everybody's injured, and like, you know, they're frantic, you know, they're worrying, and it increases the chance of them making a mistake, which I think is really nice about the Legion. I do understand why survivors don't like playing against them, but if you're also going to DC just right off the bat, get out of here, please. Nobody wants you. Your teammates don't want you. We don't want you. So go. But yeah, nonetheless, onto the final change. I think they should decrease his fatigue duration by about half a second. I think that would make it 1.5 seconds instead of... No, it'd make it 2.5 seconds. I know they changed it recently, but I think his fatigue is still a bit long. I just think it'd help a little bit more with keeping up the momentum of Feral Frenzy if his fatigue was shortened a bit more. So, yeah. Now moving on to 16th place, which I would say is the Knight. Now, the Knight's a newer killer. I think he is a very controversial killer at the moment. A lot of people say he's bad. A lot of people say he's good. I think, personally, he's kind of in between. I think he's kind of within that, like, 3-character range, which is obviously 15 and 14 following this, of killers that I think play well, but are still lacking. So, for the Knight, I think a couple things. I think his patrol path spirit, you know, the little thing you control to place, you know, your patrol path, I think that should be just kind of invisible. I already said this is what to do with the Knight. These are already things you know or you've heard from what to do with the Knight. I think it should be invisible and basically just play like Spirit. I think they should give him a cancel patrol button. It's so stupid that he can't do that. And I also think picking up the standard should not buff survivors. I think these would help a lot more with giving him a more active role in the game rather than just making him the pressure monster that he is at the moment. That's kind of boring to play against. You know, it's what he does really well right now, just kind of pressuring people. He's like a more annoying Legion in a sense. I think they should retool his kit in a way that like rewards more active play rather than oppression play. So, moving on to 15th, which is the Nemesis. And the Nemesis is honestly, I think, has the possibility to be one of the best like chase killers in the game. He's got a great concept for an ability, and even right now, it's not that bad. It's a very okay ability. I think it could be much better though. You know, and speaking of which, I think that his tentacle should start off with 16. It should start off 6 meters long. At the moment, it starts off at 5 and then goes on to 16 as, you know, as you tier up more and more. I think it just makes a lot more sense for it to just be 6 by default. I think it's a good range. I think it's a healthy range. And of course, that's why I have the joke. I would have hit that if I was in tier 3 because, you know, I really don't think it's that strong nonetheless. Maybe it increases up to 7 meters. Maybe it increases to 6.5 as he gets to tier 3. But nonetheless, maybe that's for a what to do with the Nemesis video. But going on to the second change, I think that infected survivors when dead should become zombies, or survivors when worried also become zombies. Now I know they said that they couldn't do it because of AI restraints and their shitty code, but we all know that's bullshit. You can run 4 survivor AI in custom matches, and I bet your ass that survivor AI are a lot harder to code than zombie AI. So, you know, why do we have 4 survivor AI but we can't have more than 2 zombie AI? How behavior? Explain to me how is there more survivors than zombies when the survivors are just objectively much smarter than the dumbass zombies? Speaking of which, I think when zombies don't move from their position for about 15 seconds, they should automatically die and respawn. Like, how many times have we had a zombie stuck in just the dumbest place? I don't know if I'll have a picture of it, but there's a time where I had a zombie in Midwich stuck on the pipe from the drop. Like, and it's too stupid to turn around. It's just too dumb. Unlike those stupid survivor AI that know how to run me so well that I can't aim for shit with Huntress or Trickster. So how come they can do that? How come survivors can spin me while I'm playing a range killer, but zombies can't turn around just in general? Huh? Why can't they? So moving on to the 14th place, I have the Demogorgon. Now, I think it's well-known knowledge that Demogorgon is considered to be one of the most balanced killers in the game. Of course, I absolutely agree. I think he's fantastic, he's beautiful, and he's lovely. That being said, I think his portals suck. I think his shred is fantastic. I think his add-ons are meh. I think his overall gameplay is pretty fun, but I think his add-ons I think his portals need a bit of a buff. So I think traversing the Upside Down, I think its movement speed should be increased by about 5 to 10 meters. It's pretty slow at the moment, and there's really not a lot of good there's no good add-ons that increase it. There's the one that increases it by like 40%, but you also lose 2 portals, which is a stupid trade-off for a green add-on. I just think it should be increased or it should be increased a lot by base kit. So it's more of an oppressive teleport. I also think that setting and entering portal the duration should be decreased by about half a second or so. I think it's about 3 seconds at the moment to place a portal. I think it should be about 2 to 2.5. I think Demogorgon or teleport killers. I think one like Demogorgon too would benefit a whole hell of a lot from keeping momentum. And I think your momentum kind of stalls when it comes to placing portals. So I think increasing the speed as well as of course the teleportation speed itself of placing portals would help a whole lot keeping his momentum high. This one isn't, and my final change isn't really a change, just kind of something I like to see. I think it'd be nice if they updated the visuals for the upside down. Nothing special even. I just think if they had like an animation of the Demogorgon running through an upside down version of the map that they're currently in, kind of just running through walls and stuff, I think it'd be pretty funny. I think it'd be fun. Fine. I don't see the problem with it. So yeah, that's it for our B tier. Now moving on to our A tier and damn it, not again. And sitting at the bottom of our A tier, we have the Dredge, or as I like to call him, Greg. And I think they should remove locker locks. This is like that weird power restriction I was talking about earlier. Greg isn't that strong. I mean, I know I have him in the top 15, but he isn't like that strong. He isn't so strong where you need to limit his ability to keep map pressure going. I really think they should remove it. I think it's a really redundant thing that just kind of doesn't help as it is, and it doesn't hurt to remove it as a whole. So I think that should be gone entirely. I also think that lockers within hook survivors are locked. So I know I just said remove locks, but I also think it's kind of dumb that killers like... So I think it's kind of dumb that lockers are just blocked entirely. I think it'd help a lot more if you can teleport to a locker within a hook survivor range, but you have to break through a lock, right? So it's like you keep the lock function, but you make it make more sense, basically. Make it kind of fit better within the flow of his kit. I mean, like, you know, you can place Remnant within the range, you can place Night Guards within the range, you can do a lot of things within the range of a hook that I really don't think make sense, or make a whole lot more sense than limiting Greg. So why do that at all? I think they should just, you know, slowly open it, or slowly go through the locker rather than blocking it entirely. And finally, I think deactivating the Greg's Remnant should take a couple of seconds. So I said that really weirdly. I wrote that really weirdly too. Basically, when a survivor walks into the Remnant, you know, you can destroy it. I think it'd be a much better idea to have it take a couple of seconds. So, you know, it's like you're in chase with one survivor, you have your Remnant placed, and you're about to cut him off with the locker, but then someone just disables him from your backline. I think it'd make a lot more sense. Or I guess not a lot more sense, but I think it'll be very helpful if the survivor walks into the Remnant and it starts giving the killer instinct, so then you can use it or you can lose it. You know, you can teleport or you can teleport. Or teleport to the locker that you're trying to cut people off with, or teleport to the Remnant. I think it'd be a really nice and helpful change that wouldn't really hurt anyone outside or anyone at all. I think it'd just be a really nice Greg change, and of course we all love Greg. Why would we want Greg to be worse? We only want Greg to be better. So yeah. Moving on to the 12th place, I think they should remove the Hag. So 11th place, I think Oni. I think they should increase the amount of blood orbs dropped by a survivor action. I think they should increase the amount of blood orbs dropped when a survivor performs an action by 1. At the moment, it drops 2. I think it'd be nice if it dropped 3. There was that one glitch a while ago where it dropped like 8 for the Oni. I think that was a really fun change, but obviously too strong. So I think they should give it a bit of a buff, but not like 8 at a time. Nonetheless, I think they should give some kind of blood orb drop buff. And 2, I think they should increase the charge rate to increase the passive charge rate of how many charges he has gained to 0.8 charges per second rather than its current 0.3 charges per second. Because, you know, that's like almost over twice as quick, and you can still theoretically gain his power without hitting someone in a little over a minute, whereas right now it takes like 5 minutes. And I think this would even make one of his other add-on, his green one that no one uses, a lot more useful. So yeah, I think his passive charge rate should be increased by quite a bit. I also think that successful downs while in Blood Fury should increase Blood Fury duration by 1 second. Because, you know, honestly, I think that Oni is a really good killer. You know, he spreads pressure, or he's very intimidating alone, but I think he can spread pressure very well with his Blood Fury. You know, you can go down, you can go and basically go on a rolling streak. You know, down after down after down after down. I think he can be really helpful or really strong. But I also think a lot about him doesn't really make sense. It kind of plays into that more killer restrictions that don't make sense, like the Oni, or like I said for the Greg. I think it makes more sense to be rewarded for your downs, rather than, you know, not rewarded, punished for your downs. Because at the moment, you know, you down someone and you lose some charges on your Blood Fury. That doesn't make sense to me. I think it makes sense that you know, you hit them, you down them, and you gain some charges. I don't know. Maybe that's just me, but I think it'd be a lot nicer. Breaking our top 10. We have Huntress. Huntress, obviously, great map pressure, great anti-loop, just great all around. There's not like a whole lot to say on her because she kind of just does everything incredibly well. I really don't think she needs any changes. I even think her add-ons are fine. I think her base kit's fine. I really don't see anything to change about her. She's kind of like she's one of, I think, about 2 killers I think don't need a single change. So yeah. Moving on to the 9th place, I have the Twins. Now, Twins both simultaneously suck ass and rock ass, because these things, these pieces of shits, can either be the greatest or the worst thing in the game. You can either be having the greatest time, you know, enjoying your life, or you can be hating your life because you're playing Twins. Unless you're Survivor, and if you're Survivor, you're just hating your life, DCing because you're not playing against the nurse. So, I think a couple changes would be nice. I think they should decrease Victor's recall timer by about 20 seconds. So instead of having to wait 30 seconds of Victor being on a Survivor to recall him, it'll take 10. I don't know why it's so long. You're just hindering the twin. This is more of those, like, I think this one's more indirect, but it's like you're just we're just hindering killers in ways they shouldn't be hindered. I also think that successful down while pouncing, the cooldown should be 2 seconds, rather than, I think right now it's 8 seconds. I could be wrong. I think I'm mixing up 2 things. I just think that successfully pouncing with survivors, you know what I mean? No, I was right the first time. I think pouncing a survivor or downing a survivor with Victor should be 2 seconds. It's at the moment it's 3, which is why everybody loved Toy Sword, because it was so good. It chopped it down by, I think, 25%, maybe 15. I don't remember, but I don't play Twins a lot, sorry. I think it'd be so much nicer if it was a much faster cooldown, so survivors have less opportunity, if they'd be very, very exact to kick Victor and kill him. And I also think that his missed cooldown, or his missed pounce cooldown, should be decreased by 1 second. I think at the moment it's like 4, maybe it's also 3, but I think if they decreased it by a solid second, not only would it help newer players get into Twins easier, it just helped Twins just a whole lot. You know, and like I said, for the same reason I said for the same reasoning as decreasing the successful down while pouncing, I just think it would help with the character's momentum, which I mentioned a lot, because let's be real, killers quite heavily rely on momentum to win a game. I think it would help with that, though. I also think it would help with Survivor, or like, I think it just helped with against survivors as a whole. You know, it makes survivors have to be a lot more precise, a lot more active on the roll. And another bonus one, because there's like 1,000 that you could get for Twins, I think that after downing a survivor, it should not take 8 seconds for me to switch between Victor to Charlotte. Like, you down a survivor, right? It takes 8 damn seconds just to switch to Charlotte. That doesn't include Charlotte's like wake up time. That doesn't include the distance. That is legit how long you have to wait before you can just get out of Victor. That is so inconceivably stupid. Whoever came up with that, I hate you. I think it should be like 4 or maybe 2 seconds as well, because that's so dumb. Why do I have to wait like legit the amount of time it takes for someone to finish a dead hard animation just to switch? But yeah, you know, that's it. Before I get on a rant with Twins, that's it for Twins. Moving on to 8th place, I have the Executioner. I don't think he needs any changes besides an add-on rework. Now, I know I said, you know, I don't think I try to stay away from add-on reworks, but as you get higher up, you realize that not a lot of killers need a whole lot of changes. I really just think he needs a heavy add-on rework. besides his range add-ons, I think every single add-on could use a rework. Even the one, like the mannequin leg and the spearhead and stuff, I think those are fine. But I think they should still get a buff at the bare minimum. Because, let's be honest, he probably has the worst add-on selection in the game. Like, really bad. So, you know, I think add-on rework is really the only change he needs. Moving up to the tippity-toppity. Oh, never mind. Moving up to Pinhead. Our 7th place. Pinhead is so cool. I love Pinhead. He's the thumbnail. He's on the thumbnail of this video. He's not my favorite killer in the game, but I would say he's probably one of, if not my favorite licensed killer. I love him. He's funny voice line man, just like Wesker. He goes chain, you know, he goes, I don't know how to describe him. I'm sorry. Like I said, or like I will say in a later video that I recorded today, I'm bad at articulating my opinions on things. So I'm just going to move on to the changes. I think his chain should break. I think his possessed chains should break slowly when interacting with the environment. So, you know, when you hit a survivor, it spawns 3 chains. Right now, they break instantly. I think they should have the Death Slinger effect. I think it should just break slowly through the environment rather than just breaking instantly. I think that'd help a lot with Pinhead's pressure and chase. Because in the moment, he's not a bad chase killer, but he does have a lot of weak points. So yeah. I also think that the Lament configuration should only be seen within a 28 meter range when not in Chain Hunt. It baffles me that survivors can see the Lament configuration at all times, because unless you're camping it like a little bitch, or you know where it is, or you're able to track it throughout the course of the game, you're really not going to get value out of Chain Hunt a whole lot. Or maybe even if survivors are dumb. But like, I think at the moment, just how like widely available the Levant configuration is at all times for survivors is just too much. I think it's kind of dumb. I think it gives too much information. Kind of flows into that boat of like the Onryo, a couple other killers I can't think of off the top of my head. I think it's kind of dumb that they give the survivors more information about the killer's power than the killer gets of their own power. I think this would be a nice change. I think it'd be very helpful. And finally, I think they should increase the rate. We get voice lines. I feel like I get like 5 voice lines a game. I should be getting 40, you know? I want to hear come 100 times a game. I don't want to hear it once, you know? Like, I want to hear the oh please, no tears. They are a waste of good suffering. More and more, you know? I want to hear that stuff more. Like I feel like whenever I get it, it's like it's too little and I just barely notice it because I'm like so engrossed in the game. But if I constantly had voice lines thrown at me, I think it'd be a lot more fun for my experience as Pinhead. I mean, even if they made it so only Pinhead can hear most of his voice lines, I think that'd be fine. Nonetheless, more voice lines. Now, in 6th place, I have the Spirit. Now, this is probably going to be an unpopular opinion, but I don't get why the Spirit is so popular. I don't think her power is that strong. Can it be mildly oppressive? Sure. Is it that strong, though? I don't know. That's for you to decide. For what me to decide is changes I think would happen. I think when phasing with the Spirit, you can still visibly, she kind of like as she is right now normally, I think she should be able to phase, I think she should be forced to phase in and out visibly when she's phasing. That made kind of no sense the way I said it, but I don't know how else to say it, so I'm just going to move on to, I think attacking when leaving the phase state should not count as an M1. Kind of like the whole nurse thing. I feel like Spirit should also be an M2 when popping out of phase. Maybe it is at the moment. I actually didn't double check that, but I'm like 90% sure it is. So, yeah, I just really think it should be an M1 at all, or an M2 and an M1, not M1 at all times. And finally, I think that shining the flashlight in the Spirit's husk should slow her down. I don't think it should pull her out of phase at all. That would absolutely kill her and all of her playability. But I think it'd be nice, like a little counter, if any survivors in the area, to slow her down a bit. Just make her, or maybe even just make her louder, or make her visible while in phase. I think there should be a bit more counterplay, just so you have an idea of what's happening. It might not come into play too much if it were implemented, but I think it would help a bit overall. But yeah, that's it for Spirit. Moving on to our top 5, and sitting at the bottom of our top 5 is Plague. I think Plague is a fantastic killer. When I first started playing her, I wanted to kill myself, and now that I play her more and more, I love her. I really think she's super fun. She's super aggressive. I hope I might put 2 play games that I played earlier this week because they're so cool. She can be so much fun and so damn impressive. Um, she's just a ball. Uh, Beyond that, though, I think there's only one change that really needs to happen to her. I think they should increase her projectile speed by like 5 or 10%. In certain maps, like Larry's, for example, or the game, it can be really hard to properly get hits with her because you have doorways, ceilings, arches blocking your vomit. Whereas in outdoor maps, you just be able to aim higher and you can usually get it. I think if they increase your projectile speed, I think it would lower the arc a bit, so it'd make it a bit easier just to hit people in like close corridor maps. I also think there's been too many times where I've tried to vomit on people and it just misses because it's too slow. So now we're moving on to our S tier, and at the bottom of our S tier, I put the Mastermind. Probably another unpopular opinion. I think Wesker is an underrated killer, which is weird because he's one of the most played killers, I'm sure. He has fantastic anti-loop, or I guess really good anti-loop. He has really good pressure because of that anti-loop. He can move around maps super quickly. I think he's got a fantastic selection of add-ons, and I think his infection is super strong. Like, you can keep survivors jumping left and right, finding infections just so they don't die, and it gives you opportunities to slow down gens and stuff. I think he's really good. I think he has a lot of so much synergy with so much of everything. Now, that being said, I think there's a couple things. I think they should switch his Unicorn Medallion out with his base kit. I think Unicorn Medallion is generally a better idea as a whole for him, but I understand why people like base kit more. I think it would be nice if his base kit and medallion switch places. I get that logistically it wouldn't make sense because Unicorn Medallion is supposed to be the opposite of Walkie, and if you switch them, it wouldn't make sense. But I think it'd be a lot nicer to just have Unicorn Medallion be base kit. That one's a really dumb one, though. That one doesn't really need to happen. One that should happen, I think throwing survivors should guarantee an injure. There are too many maps that just collisions either ass and you ping pong survivors between trees, or like it's just an empty field. But I think throwing survivors should guarantee an injure. Might be a bit strong, but I don't care. I think it's something that needs to happen. Because at the moment you'll just infect them, and then you really don't get any value out of it. There's been so many times where I imagine, and even to me, I've lost games because I couldn't get the injure on a survivor in like Cold Wind or something. But yeah, I really think that's it for Mastermind. Now going to the top 3. At the bottom of it, we have the Artist. Now the Artist, I think, is easily one of the most overlooked characters in the game. She has pretty decent add-ons. She has great synergy with a lot of perks, and she just has the most ungodly map pressure and anti-loop perk in the game, or ability in the game. You can basically shut down loops almost entirely. Even with the W meta, you just shut them down. Run something like Disillusion, they vault a pallet, you slap a bird. If you just injured them, they're either forced to vault the pallet or try to run away, and nonetheless, you're probably going to be able to get a lot of shit out of it. You can also find survivors easily. You can get them from a distance. She's basically just better Huntress. I think she's super overlooked, like I said. There's one change I think should happen. I don't think jumping into lockers should remove crows. I think that's super easy. I think that's super dumb that's a thing. I think it removes all kind of like, I guess, importance onto crows, because even if locker spawns are inconsistent as a whole, I really think that it would just help, and it's an unnecessary thing. But yeah, I don't know how to defend my point beyond that. So let's move on to the final character, or the final 2. Of course, number 2 is Blight. And honestly, I don't think Blight needs any changes. I think his add-ons need a complete nerf overhaul. But I don't think base game needs any changes. I think he requires just the amount of like technical skill, or just technical know-how as a whole, to be good. Like, not super overpowered base kit wise. I really think base kit is perfectly fine, and his add-ons are the problem. So I think the only changes he needs to do his add-ons. Probably another hot take for me, but this list is full of them. Now obviously Nurse is number 1. I think I don't need to explain myself. She's Nurse. I do think that her blink attacks should count as M2s. That's like the number one thing that would help perfectly. And I think that she should be significantly slowed when blinking through large objects. There's probably a lot more you could do to her to like kind of hinder her without destroying her entirely. But those are what I can think of off the top of my head for just two small changes. Mainly the M2 thing. I think the M2 thing would help quite a bit. Nonetheless, that's all for this list. That's it. There's a couple of killers I know I didn't really go through explaining my reasoning for their placement. I kind of forgot, or I tried to sneak it in while talking about the changes. A couple of them I don't think I need explaining, like Why Your Nurse. Yeah, that's it for this list. A lot longer than I was hoping. 48 minutes recording this. I hope I don't have to re-record it. But nonetheless, I hope you guys enjoyed. And I hope you guys have a great Christmas. So, without further ado, nothing else to add. Happy holidays. And a happy new year. Even though there's more videos of me coming out later.